Hello, YouTubers. This is your Sensei Al Bob, and I am at one of my favorite libraries. It's got great everything. It's like the Taj Mahal of libraries. But I'm heading out into the woods where I'll have no cell signal, no internet, no nothing. And the closest I can do is, drive 30 miles to a restaurant that has Wi-Fi and talk to you on my Gmail, which is the dude awake 42 at Gmail. So I'm going to leave you this one. Earlier this morning, I talked to you from my condo recording studio of my car, which I've been living in for the last few weeks, up in the forest. I had to come down into town to go have a doctor's appointment, and John said, stay with me. Please, I want to talk to you. I need your company, blah, blah, blah. I was there 5 minutes, and he threw me out. Poor John. But as I keep saying, John is the canary in the social coal mine. He represents what we're going through. Look at it, Donald Trump. Look at our government. Look at our, we're tearing ourselves apart, and we have no real reason to. In actuality, we have less crime, more people fed, more people healthy, more people educated than any time in history. And yet, why are we so unhappy? Why is our life, John, I want to kill myself, life's so miserable, blah, 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 And we're all killing ourselves, I, weighed almost 500 pounds. That sure was a good way of trying to kill myself. But the universe didn't want me dead, so it made me really sick for 5 years and made me lose everything. And instead of me going, life is so terrible, why did it happen to me, blah, 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 I said, thank you, Jesus, because it gave me another, and I'm on my 50th second chance. And so I was knocked down into owning, having nothing, living on $300 a month. How many of you out there could do that? And I'm having a pretty good time because I am here to serve. Now, the guy who let me stay in his little box in the woods, he showed up from Germany. And he was all pissed off because nothing was the way he wanted it. Had to be this way, that way. And, of course, I was to blame. I was the person because I was the person who he could blame. And he screamed at me for being so insensitive, so out of touch, so getting into his space. Well, that's kind of what I do, get into people's space so they can see that they have a space. Of course, and this guy is a psychotherapist, famous. Ooh, he's lived on, spiritual communes. Ooh, he's famous. Anyway, we're only famous in our own minds. But, the lucky ones of us know what morons we truly are. So anyway, but he did give me some insights on to look at things, and that is a reflection on our society of today, is that we get in each other's space. We do things in a selfish way. We have no foundation, moral, spiritual, even physical, to move forward in life. And that's what we have to do. That's what I'm living out in the woods, living with nothing to work on, is to help you YouTubers out there develop a new alternative aesthetic to materialism. And I have these very deep, interesting conversations with everyone I see, no matter. Sunday, I'm staying at a friend's, and it was right next to a really super crappy, $30 a night motel, just above every bed having a bed bugs. Their pillows are made out of bags of concrete. And in the parking lot were all these guys cooking up chicken and dogs and potatoes and other vegetables, and they had a lot of beer. And so I walked by and we started talking, and they were guys working on a pipeline. There were guys putting up wind generators, guys putting up cell towers, and all of these guys were between the ages of, I would say, 25 and 40. And all of them had been in the military. All of them had been in 9/11, had joined to protect America against the nasty Muslim radicals, and they went into different services, and they were used up. A number of these guys have been deployed 10 times, to the point where they lost their minds, and they did something against the military code, and they were given dishonorable discharges. So here they are, with every one of these guys had super PTSD. Every one of these guys had been in jail, because once they got out, they got no support. They got into drugs or whatever. But they all had some pretty good training, so once they got out of the military, they were working on these projects where they're getting paid pretty good. But their employees don't care about their background, because these guys are getting paid maybe 20 to 40 bucks an hour, but their employers are getting between $100 and $300 an hour. And that's because all of these things are relatively dangerous. Putting up wind generators up in the air, cell towers up in the air, working in welding down in holes, and anyway, so the life expectancy of these guys are very short. So they're just used up. So these guys are realize all this, and so I had this amazing conversation with them, and they were the most aware folk I've met in a long time. And because they all had, like me, physical things that they were going to die from, depending on how they were going to take care of themselves. And they weren't taking care, they were basically climbing up these towers. Right, I said, how many guys fall off that thing? And they said, oh, well, within the company, maybe 3 or 4 a month. I said, well, how many of them, I said, well, and they said, well, it depends, if they fall 30, 40 feet, they're just crippled. If they fall anything above that, they're usually dead. And I said, does that bother you? And they go, nah, it'd be a good way to go. So, we talked about everything: God, life, death, meaning to life, what they thought of the political structure, the environmental structure, the economic structure. And these guys were smarter than any PhD I'd ever come, because they had real-time, real-life experience, objective experience, not subjective. Like, I just finished having a conversation with a guy who's a scholar, and he was, as we were talking about things, that he kind of knew about this and that, but as I kind of pushed the envelope on that conversation, he said, well, that's not in the textbook. Well, can it be? And that's where we're at. We had to rewrite a new textbook, and that textbook has to be built on a